Hi everyone, Jono here again with another solar video. So today is Sunday 15th of December 2019 and I thought I would just show a little run through of my system for those who might be new to my channel and also show you what I've been up to and what I'm doing today. Alright, so for those of you who might not be so familiar with what's happening here is that I generate my own power using solar, which is of course a modern technology. It's been around for a while now and it's only expanding and advancing as we go along. Alright? And so it's just basically what my system looks like. I'm using a 800 watts inverter. It's not a pure sine wave, but oh well. Alright, I'm using a 20 amps PWM charge controller. Alright, and at this currently I'm actually using a 12 volts automotive battery, which of course I know it's not the best, it's not the ideal thing to use, but I'll explain later on how I managed to make this work. So what's going on right at this point, you can even the inverter running. I'm actually running my deep freezer on my solar system here. And so if you look right here, this is actually my deep freezer, right? And it's actually currently running. I think it's actually just cycled off. And what I basically do is that I basically just keep some water bottles inside. I keep them frozen. So I just run my deep freezer. Like for example, a day like today, when I'm actually home, I'm not at work today, I actually run my deep freezer, right? Basically throughout the day, allow these things to be frozen. Then like tomorrow now when I come home from work, I'll actually run maybe 1 or 2 cycles in the night. Alright, and then that basically keeps my deep freezer at a certain temperature so that my food can actually be kept fresh. So deep freezer basically just cycled off as I did mention. Alright, and the battery is currently in float. But even when the deep freezer actually cycles on, my battery is actually still kept in float. Right, I have a 250 watts panel. It's really a 12 volt panel, a 24 volt panel. Alright, and I'm actually using a 12 volt system. So basically I'm only getting like half of the power from the panel, right? If you understand as it relates to how MPPT charge controllers and PWM charge controllers works. So actually I'm actually planning on getting an MPPT charge controller, but so far this one is working out okay for me so far. As it relates to my lighting, I actually designed my lights myself. As you can see right here, this is actually an LED tube bulb, right, which I actually found which wasn't really working. But most times with these things, it's really the circuitry that is not working and not actual bulbs themselves, right? I found a way how to actually make these lights work from 5 volts. So I actually rewired it myself so it can actually work from 5 volts, right? And the reason for that is that I normally used to rewire them to work from 12 volts, but as my battery voltage decreases, the light also decreases. As my battery voltage increases, like for example in the day, I might accidentally turn on my lights and my lights get damaged, right, because of the high voltage. So it was kind of hard to keep them regulated, right? But what I'm actually doing right now is, you can see right here, you see this little red light. This is a DC to DC buck converter. So this is a step-down regulator, and this one is rated for 5 amps, right? It also has a constant current, right, protection as well, right, and so forth. So basically, this steps down the 12 volts coming from the battery to 5 volts, right, so that my lights can actually work from 5 volts, and there's enough power to run all my lights, and it doesn't have to chip in the protection feature, right? My lights right here, what I designed, for example, this one works with 2 switch. One controls the middle part of the light. The other switch controls the 2 outer parts of the light. So for example, if I switch off the middle part, I can switch on just like that. Alright? And so pretty much all my lights work from 5 volts. So even like this one now in the bathroom, you can see it's flipping, it's really bright. You can see right here? It's actually really bright. This is the one in the living room. and this is the one on the veranda. See? Alright, so as I mentioned, these all work from 5 volts. Alright, and as I mentioned, these are from 5 volts, and the thing about it is that when these lights are on, they each consume around roughly 6 watts of energy, right? And they can actually be compared with a 100 watt incandescent bulb, right? I'll probably do another video as I explain some of the benefits or some way you can actually maximize the use of your LED bulbs, right? But that's for a future video. Right at this point, the deep freeze actually just cycled in, right? And you can actually see the battery voltage is actually at 13.9, right? It's currently not in, it's currently saying that it's gone back to bulk, alright? But it's actually basically be the float voltage, but it soon goes back to float, to actually float. And you can see right now I'm pulling in roughly 7 amps coming in from the panel, right? And we're at 19 volts, so, right? So 7 amps at 19 volts. Alright, and as I mentioned, the deep freeze actually just cycled in. I also have this 12 volts fan that I actually made myself, right? Basically using some parts that I have from another fan that I had before, right? And if you can see right here, I actually changed the motor to a DC motor. Currently I'm only using just a straightforward on and off switch, right? That's a normal house plug switch. And I'm using a DC to DC buck converter to actually step down. This one actually can manage up to 20 amps. Alright, so I actually use this now to actually manage the fan. Right, and if I actually turn the fan on right now, you can see, and it works great. And one of the benefits now, we're using even the buck converter, I can actually tune it up, so I can at this point it's using roughly 10 watts or maybe say 15 watts of energy, but I can turn it up to get even more power out of this fan. As you can see, right? So, yeah, I don't know if you can actually hear it, but yeah, and it's very quiet, right? Because one of the things is that you know that when you're actually using like a modified sine wave inverter to run a DC to run an AC fan, sorry, you will actually notice a noise, and the fan also overheats, which for me is very annoying. So I decided to just make my own 12 volts fan, and this one actually consumes far less power than a fan that would actually be at this size, right, which is roughly 40 watts, right? And even this, and this basically the setting that is on now is basically the setting you'll get on the lowest setting on the fan that is on that's rated for 40 watts. And as I did mention, I can actually tune it up as I feel like. I also have this 12 volts iron that I ordered from eBay. Actually, it's really a dry iron. And well, the wires that came on it was very thin, so I actually added on wires on myself, and I put on a 240 volt. Well, I basically adjust a normal 110 plug for 240 volts. So for those of you who may not be so familiar with my system, all of my items that work from DC, I use a 240 volts plug. Being that I don't use 240 volts where I'm at, I would normally use 110 volts. So I have two types of plug. So you have the 110 and 240 volts. So the 110 is used for the power that's coming from the inverter, while 240 volts plug is actually for those things that work directly to my 12 volts DC system. And I might even still use a cigarette charger socket, as I do plan to actually add some to the system. This one is not currently connected, so don't worry, there's no safety hazard at this point. So I'm basically gonna be doing some washing now, and then I'm gonna use this iron now to show you what this iron is like to iron my clothes for the week basically. So I'm gonna wash, allow them to dry, and I have a few that might need to be ironed now, so I'll iron them shortly after.